I'm so excited for this episode. I have Josie Kornelson on the show. Josie and I went to high school together years ago and recently connected through Josie and her team hiring us to do some photography. And Josie came to one of our public talks as well for how to make social that performs on LinkedIn, which was really good to see you there. I was pretty happy to see that. So Josie is a performance and compensations systems consultant. If you don't know what that is, she's gonna answer that. I don't even know what a compensation consultant is. And she works at Lead Up Coaching and Consulting here in Saskatoon. Josie helps people and organizations understand their strengths, build supportive systems, and navigate change with clarity. She works in performance and compensation systems, leadership development, and strengths-based coaching. She's a Gallup certified strengths coach and career coach and navigator, and trained in autism and neurodiversity in the workplace. So welcome here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this.
Have you been on a podcast before?
No, this is my first one.
Great.
Yeah.
First of many,
Yeah.
I hope. I imagine your skill set would probably, you're already running workshops and working with leadership. I imagine you'd be a prime person to just start doing keynote speaking and stuff like that. Have you ever done any keynotes or like been a speaker at an event that wasn't like a lead up conference or lead up event or anything like that?
Well, you know what? I have done speaking for organizations that I've been pulled in for through Lead Up. And I find that a lot of the work that I do ends up with me talking a lot. So I get a lot of practice.
And if you're guiding teams, like you have to really know your stuff. So I think you're going to be teaching me a lot today. I'm hoping so. I'm very curious about this kind of stuff. I'll tell you, so I'm an entrepreneur because I kind of have to be. I just wanted to take photos and make a living from it.
Yeah.
And then slowly over time, kind of what I wanted grew to where I needed more help, and then growing a team. And then, then you got to make yourself more professional. Like, if I'm going to have a team, I need to have money to pay them, have rent,
It snowballs quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely I've enjoyed being an entrepreneur as like its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I also like the creativity of like photography, but then the entrepreneurship side is like its own game. And I find that actually super creative.
Yeah.
And fun to learn, fun to grow, and fun to like learn from people like you. And like, and I'd love to dive into more of that.
Yeah.
Why I invited you, that pretty much answers it. Is I just think you have something that could sit, to share with this audience. This show is dedicated to, conversations about leadership, building a thing, growing a thing.
Yeah.
It's not too clear, but like basically if you're trying to do something that's complicated, or inventing something, whatever it is, like that's what this show's about. So
I love it.
Anyway, that's why you're here.
Cool.
So why don't you start telling me what a compensation system consultant is?
Well, Matt, thank you for asking. You know what? We played around with the title a little bit because it's hard to encompass what it all is, because you'll notice that as soon as an organization starts talking about performance, it automatically leads to compensation, and vice versa too, right? Because how we show up at work, what we do, and how we are compensated for it, those are really foundational systems. And it's interesting because you talk about how, your entrepreneurial journey within your photography it's a game within a game, right? It's an event within an event kind of thing.
Very meta.
Very, yeah. And I think that what I do is very similar, because what you do for a job is one thing, what you're educated in doing, what you're experienced in doing. And yet there's this piece that's really foundational in compensation. And so how do we use that not only as motivation, but as recognition, as much as we don't always like to use the word validation, it is and can be what it is, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like how are we recognized for what we do? And I think when we take a look at what performance management is, there's been a lot of years where we've said, the terminologies of exceeding expectations, meeting expectations, or below expectations. Well, what does that mean? If you said that to a friend in terms of what you expected from each other, you're not going to be able to go very far with that in terms of building on whether it's connection, relationship, or even some of the endeavors that you have together, right? So when you tie all these things in together at work, we're trying to ask, is what I do for a job relevant? Does it matter? How am I supported within that system at work? And how do we make sure that it reaches the core of what drives people and what motivates people? So it's a really long-winded way of saying that we build foundational systems to support growth and development of people and answer that really foundational question of, is what I'm doing mattering?
Mhm.
And how do we recognize that?
So, would you say compensation systems would also be like how you measure? Like it's almost like if you did a good job of laying that out and getting clarity on that, a
Hmm.
person would be able to know clearly if they're doing the task, the productivity, or whatever
Yeah.
that's worthy of getting the income, like the compensation. Like, is it that fun? Is it fundamental
Yeah, so
or
what we're essentially doing is, how do we understand how your wage is impacted by the work that you do? And how do we make sure, I don't know if you've heard the term promoting to incompetence, but oftentimes
yeah,
it's a
I know.
very narrow road that people have to walk within their organizations, right? And oftentimes what we see is people who are excellent within their role ending up doing things that they're actually not even interested in doing because it's their only way to progress.
Is that a Malcolm Gladwell thing, by the way?
Oh goodness, if it's not a him thing, I'm sure he's said it at least
Yeah, okay.
once. Yeah, for
Anyway,
sure.
I know it.
Adam Grant, Malcolm Gladwell, Brene Brown, a lot of thought leaders talk about that same kind of concept. But what you do with it can feel complex, right? So to avoid promoting to incompetence, what you want to do is create career paths and career systems that actually encourage the growth where we're really good at. So, for example, you can have an expert in a workplace who's so good at knowing what they do, and then they get put into a position where they are leading teams where that's not actually what they wanted to do. I don't want to manage, I just want to work.
They
Okay.
wanted to do the actual work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yet, that's the only way that the system has been set up for them to feel successful. Well, you can have a raise if you manage more people. And so, how do we make sure that we retain the people who are being effective in the areas where they both prefer to be effective and where it benefits the organization? So that's what we do with compensation planning systems, is saying, how do you make sure that the growth and development of people is within the alignment of where they want to go, where it benefits the organization, and also encourages that growth and development through their compensation.
So what kind of people hire you to do this? Like, is this like companies hire you
Yeah.
or the individual can like reaches out and is like, I want to make more money. Can you help me get a raise?
Well, if I want to make more money, can you help me get a raise? That's probably going to look more like career transitions or career development coaching of what can I change? What do I have control over? But the compensation systems that I develop, it's generally for small businesses and nonprofit organizations.
And then so like management or
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Generally the
board of
leader.
directors. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
They're the ones reaching out.
Yeah.
And why would they reach out? Like intuitively I'm like, well, why would someone I mean, the selfish side of a business
Yeah.
owner would be why would I try to make, opportunities to pay more when I could pay less, you know?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
what's the motivations behind them? What's the benefits of doing it? What's the drawbacks of not, maybe
Yeah.
developing a path like this?
So I think when you start thinking about the conversation of compensation, what everybody dreads on both sides of the table is that conversation where I think I'm going to go ask for a raise, right? And it can be uncomfortable for the person asking or uncomfortable for the person listening, depending. And what we find with small businesses, especially, is as you're growing and engaging employees, you're oftentimes in that growth point. The answer to "Can I have a raise?" can become, well, yes, with a question mark, right? Or how do you measure what that increase is going to be? And so what my goal is to take away some of that uncertainty where you sit across the table and say, "Hey, here's the work I've been doing. I would like a raise." And for the owner, the leader, the manager to be able to have a response that says, "Here is where I've seen you progress," or "Here's where I'd like to see you progress." So there's movement attached to increase in a way that it's not just, "Hey, how can we increase your wage without reason?" But how can we work together to make sure that what you're doing is in alignment with where we're going as an organization? And I use that as a motivation also to increase your compensation.
And what's the win for both sides? Like
S-
the employee gets to make more and
Yeah,
see a roadmap.
yeah,
What's the benefit for the employer of doing that?
that's a good question. So when someone asks, "Can I have a raise?" what you want to be able to do is quantify that, right? So if you're looking at it from just numbers, well, how does that benefit the organization? Just like you asked, why would I pay more if I can pay less? But if you can if you can approach those increases to the kind of work that's being done, here's the level at which we're ready to increase your compensation. This is what we want to see from you as an individual. This is what we want to see from you as a leader, as a manager, whatever it is you're looking for. It helps them progress to the next step that becomes beneficial for the organization because they've done that, whether it's learning and development, it could be taking on more responsibility, making higher level decisions, something that makes your job easier as manager, owner, leader.
And then like the short term. Okay, before I get into that, like the drawback of that is the risk you'll lose people, is the risk you'll just like, do people, if they feel like they deserve more, like, do they leave? Is it like an employee retention thing, like
Hugely,
benefit,
yeah.
or like what's some of those?
Yeah, that's forever the balancing act, isn't it? Of how do you retain people? How do you engage people? And how do you make sure that you clear a way for them not only to stay but to be effective? Because we know there's three things that people as high performers need, and that's ability, aspiration, and engagement. And when you have those three things, right, you have to be able to do it, you have to want to do it, and then you have to want to go somewhere. And so when you look at high performance, people who are the most effective in the roles that they are at in your organization, you want to make sure that you're playing to all three of those things. So it's retention of high performers and encouragement of potential.
So would you say, like, typically you go look at a job site like Indeed or whatever. I don't even know what the sites are.
Yeah.
I don't typically, well, actually, I've never hired anyone from there. It's usually people I know.
Yeah.
The typical jobs have like typical salaries.
Yeah.
You know, is what you're doing, is salary in your framework sort of like you just throw that to the side and then more so look at the business and the value of the employee and then pick the numbers that way? Like,
Oh, good question. So I think you have to be competitive in your market ranges. That's not a question. And the work that I do is alongside of that. So we know expected wages. I'm not saying this is above and beyond, but I'm saying here's a pathway for movement.
because like if you have a team member who's really valuable
Mm-hmm.
and brings a lot to, let's say, the bottom line,
Mm-hmm.
like just through all the results they bring, like maybe
Yeah.
they're really good with the client and the work they do is good. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm speaking kind of to our team. Then if essentially if you make this roadmap and they could make way more than like an industry standard, if you did it right, it'd be good for you for them to make more because it would also have a direct sort of correlation to the company's revenue. Like, would you be that specific where it's
Absolutely.
like connected to
Has to
the
be.
health of the company and
Yeah.
those?
Absolutely. So for me to walk in and throw the same formula to the same organizations, it's not going to work, or to different organizations, rather, it won't work that way, right? Because one organization may prioritize this, one may prioritize something different. So it has to be tailored not only to market data that we see, but you have to look at your operating margins. You have to look at, there's different industries will have different margins for how much they have allocated for payroll. You need to look at those kinds of things. Then you really get into the, I'm not going to say the weeds, they're really important details, but it needs to be tailored so that as they progress, it's still entirely connected to what you can pay as an employer. It just is that you don't have increases without reason, without purpose, and without a vision.
So, let's say you have a commission-based salesperson, like that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
traditional. Bringing results, you get your percentages. Let's say you're an insurance broker. I have a couple of insurance broker friends, and it's like if they sell a policy, it's black and white. You get this amount the first year, and then whatever. You
Yeah.
have this whole structure. In different roles, it may not be like, because those are directly tied to sales, but like
Mm-hmm.
in different roles, like let's say an HR professional or like a production. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you could throw out some job titles that you would typically work with that are
Mm-hmm.
non-sales.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's several that are non-sales. So, um, I mean, off of the top of my head, when you think about let's take, for example, let's look at a law firm.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a law firm, you've got two very distinct career paths. Sorry, two is very general, but let's take this for example. So you've got those working within the law profession, and then you've got um, a significant portion of the office who is working more in the administrative supportive side.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to have the same career path?
No.
No, they're doing two entirely different roles, right? But they're
And
doing it
the
within.
lawyers is billable hours, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
admin might not.
That's right. But you're looking at it from, you have to be able to understand how to, if you've got someone working on the admin side of things, how do you make sure that their progression continues to be effective, knowing that their career path is going to be different than someone who's working as a lawyer? right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So then what you want to ask is how you can make sure that you give them a career path progression that says, well, what's going to be the most beneficial to the organization for you working in administration? Well, here are the things that we'd like to see from you. We'd like to see more autonomy, more decision making, more initiative, more all of these things that you want to build in. And here's how you can impact your own wage by moving further into this via not just experience, but also an understanding of when that's happening well and when there's accountability built in when it's not.
So these roadmaps you're building, they're not just for like one person. Like they could be per job type, or like, I mean, we simplified law to 2 roles, but
Which is grossly
let,
oversimplified. I
but
recognize
let's say
that.
it was that simple.
Mm-hmm.
That same framework you have for
Mm-hmm.
one admin can just be the company policy for all admin, or are you more, a company recognizes they have a really high performing team member. Is it
Mm-hmm.
custom to them?
Yeah, that's a good
Or
question.
or is it broad? I guess is it like individual, or is it broad, and then is it part of the company policy that these are like how they do their pay structures, how they
Yeah.
do their career maps, so you're to avoid the what would you call it, promotion into incompetence?
Yeah, promoting to incompetence. You're asking great questions, and these are all questions that we would ask when we work with an organization. So you want to take a look at the breadth of the different roles that you have. And what you want to do is you want to create several different ways for people to progress throughout the organization, like we talked about before. Are you someone who wants to have direct reports, or someone who wants to avoid that? Are you someone who wants to do A, B, and C? But you take a look at the roles within your organization and you create multiple pathways for success based on what benefits the organization. But that's where that when I talk about consulting with systems, you sit down with a leader and you say, what are your objectives for your team? How do you want to progress this? And what are some of those really important key steps that you want to see your team taking in order to be able to advance both accountability and recognition?
I love it. Love it. What do you like about doing this? Like, is this like it seems like a big numbers game too? Like, do you have an accounting niche that you like to work in? Like, because it's so like compensation is money,
Yeah, it is.
or like it's how you're being paid.
Yeah.
Like, where'd you kind of get that desire to do that, or is that just part of a natural progression for what you do?
Yeah, so I worked in accounting for the last over a decade, bookkeeping, and then working more in corporate accounting. And I've always loved the systems side of things. I love taking a look at numbers and seeing how they can really facilitate not only growth, but understanding how you can use your understanding of what the numbers are saying to actually integrate some of your values and goals and purposes as an organization. Well, I know that this is how I want to operate my budget. This is how we want to, encourage retention of our employees. But tying those systems in with people is where I really feel like that sweet spot is, where having the experience with accounting and then also a really deep desire for developing the connection between people and understanding that all of us have those different unique motivations, fears, um, things that energize us, things that drain us, and also needing systems that are foundational enough for an organization to say, you know what, we can't reinvent the wheel every time we hire somebody new. We need a structure that's solid, and we need a way to implement that, acknowledging people's differences as well as having the understanding of a strong supportive system.
So, in essence, you
I create,
fill in the blank.
in essence, yeah, that's a good question. In essence,
For me, not for anyone else.
I know. Yeah. And no, in essence, I create sustainable systems so that people feel both supported and led well.
Like you're playing chess here, like with
Yeah.
some like pretty in-depth pieces of a company.
Yeah.
It's very
And
intimate too. Like because like probably for you to do a really good job, you got to know a lot and like learn a lot about an organization.
well,
Like I probably couldn't phone you like, "Hey Josie, someone wants a raise. Like, should it be 10%?" You'd probably be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa."
yeah. Yeah. And you know why? That's why when you start, like, these are such good questions. And I think my answers probably feel a little bit I don't know if the word complex is right, but my process always starts with questions, and it starts with so many questions. And the look I'll get is often, where are you going with this? Because what you're doing is you're building a framework, and I'm working from the bottom up. So a lot of us think top down, where this is what we're going to do and here's how we're going to do it. But what I do when I work with an organization, and this is with teams, this is with leadership development, this is with compensation and performance, is I start by asking questions, because we don't always know the direction we need to go in until we have an understanding of some of the root things that are at play. And so then we build from the bottom up. Here's what we know, here's what we've evaluated, now what are we going to do with it?
Yeah, it seems pretty like, yeah, you'd have to be really intimate. And well, let's go into that human part. You talked about Clifton. I haven't mentioned that yet on the show, but
CliftonStrengths, yeah.
CliftonStrengths, and that's a modality or framework that you're trained in.
Yeah.
What's it for? Like, how do you use it to do this, like the human side of your work?
Yeah, the human side. So when we take a look at compensation planning and performance systems, this is a part of kind of the in between. This is more towards performance, and a lot of the even the group facilitation that I do. CliftonStrengths is a behavioral assessment. It's a tool very similar if you've heard of things like DISC or Working Genius or Colby. There's a lot of workplace tools out there. CliftonStrengths is a way of understanding people's natural patterns of thought, feeling, and behavior, and being able to understand how what we do naturally has that potential for us to have that as our strength, but it involves needing to invest in that to develop it. So it's looking at, this is what I do naturally. So for example, some people will walk into any environment and immediately talk to people. Like, can you think of people like that where they walk into a... Are you like that? So
I'm extroverted.
So do you enjoy making connections with people?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can probably
especially
walk into
certain types too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I have it easy because like my world's filled with people who are kind of like me.
Yeah.
Like if I go to like a soccer game for my kids.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, I saw you at the soccer center, but you know,
Yeah.
like most people, it's like talking about their next winter holiday, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't really care. Like, cool.
Okay, so where's your sweet spot? Where do you engage the best, or where are you the most energized in a conversation?
Well, like when I talk about things that I value, so like
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, business. That's why this podcast that's actually like the heartbeat behind this, I would say, is digging into whether it's this podcast or not. Like these are the conversations I have whenever I work with someone too.
Yeah.
Like, because it's fun. It's like, and there's so much you can learn from people, and to hear people's experience and stories is like, oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Oh, that's cool. You did that. Oh, that's really neat that you have that value to like do that thing. You know, one of the conversations I had with another dad at the soccer center was about, he's a CFO, and he was talking about the money and budgets, and he's like, yeah, it's this living document. I'm like, well, tell me more. Cause I don't see, like, I do not do that. Like, that's not one of my values, but like hearing him talk about it, how it benefits his organization, you know, how he handles those complexities. Like, so this one conversation in specific I'm talking about, he's a home builder. In essence, I'm simplifying it. But then there's all these tariffs coming. This is earlier this year, or earlier 2025. And he was talking about, I was asking, I was like, does that change it for you? You know, he's building like 100 units. He's like, yeah, you just roll it. Like you just have to always update it to know where your margins are and stuff. And I'm like, and I don't know, I don't care too much about like finances, but it's like, he's playing a game too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I enjoy those conversations. Like and even just like talking to people about what gets them excited. That's probably actually what I like the most. Like what gets you really excited?
Yeah.
And if it is your kids, then I can listen. But if it's like, no one like lives for the family holiday. Well, some people do, but like, and they're good, but that's not like all of your life. There's this other meaning. There's this huge meaningful part of your life, which is your vocation.
Yeah.
And I find that area, you know, is really interesting. And actually even like how do you handle parenting while owning it? That's interesting for me because work-life balance is challenging for me. It's like, you go on a date with your wife out of town every 3 months? I saw like an Instagram post about like quarterly retreats with your spouse. And I was like, I like that. But like if I was to talk to someone about that, you know, how you manage all those pieces, like how do you, I don't know. I find those conversations really interesting. Anyway, sorry, I rambled on your question.
No, it's not rambling. It's actually saying a lot, because when I watch your expression right now, and I know we're doing a podcast, but even for those people listening, the tone of your voice, like there's a passion there, and you're leaning into what energizes you. So that concept of talking to people because you want to learn from them, you want to hear what they have to say, you want to understand what drives them. That's something that appears to me to come naturally to you, something that you probably do whether you're thinking about it or not.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're talking to that person, that CFO, when you hear him talking about his budgets, did he have a look in his eye when he started talking about them being like a living document?
Yeah.
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 And what was the look in his eye?
He got kind of excited. I think partly because like that's also a conversation he doesn't get to have all the time.
Yeah, but get to have, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't like, oh, one more person asking me about my budgets. He was like, let me tell you,
Yeah.
from what I hear you saying anyway.
Yeah. No,
Did
that's
he
true.
sound excited? Okay, so when we take a look at those things that we're naturally doing, like you're naturally connecting with people. I wasn't a part of that conversation with this person, but it sounds like he's naturally being strategic with these numbers and understanding how to arrange them in very specific, arrange might not be the right word for a CFO, but do you know what I mean? Like he's understanding how a budget impacts certain systems in a way that needs to be sometimes a little bit fluid. Those are things that we do naturally that we can build into and invest in so that shows up as a strength. So what CliftonStrengths does is it says what really, where do you want to put your energy? Where is the opportunity for you to lean into what you're doing well? Because when we take a look at, let's say, something I'll do with clients, I did it twice yesterday. Actually, we're talking about famous people, and when you think about famous people, so pick somebody you know who's well known.
Keira Knightley. Only
Keira
because I'm
Knightley.
looking at you and you always have
Oh.
reminded me of her.
Okay.
And I just watched all the Pirates movies,
All
like
the Pirates
2 weeks,
movies, yeah.
all 5 of them, like a month ago.
Okay, so what does Keira Knightley do that makes her excellent?
Well, I mean, let's just say during that era, I don't follow
Sure,
her.
yeah, in the Pirates era. What
But
did she
like
do?
to be an actress is like very a dedicated job.
Yeah,
Like
it is.
you're away from family. There's lots of sacrifice. People see the like the stars of Hollywood, but like
Yeah.
I don't know, being on a movie set. And those are big movies too, so they're not filming for just like 20 days, like they're probably filming for like hundreds of days.
Yeah. So there's that stamina, there's the engagement, and then there's also that ability, right, to show up in that very specific way over and over again. It's this like deep sense of responsibility, probably, we would assume, right? So when you take a look at somebody like Keira Knightley, if she were to pivot suddenly from all those things that she does well and that we assume she would do naturally, and she decided, I'm going to go really refine my hockey playing skills, is that going to benefit her in the Pirates franchise? Probably not.
No.
And is it that we can't develop the things that we don't do well? No, absolutely not. I'm a firm believer in growth and development. However, when we equip people with the understanding that what we are doing well naturally is an opportunity for success, it's so fascinating to see this shift. And at that point, when I talk about that with groups and I say, leaning into what we're already doing well, I always watch this, it's almost a stiffening, because that's not what we know. We don't know leaning into what we do well. We know doing better at what we're not doing. And it's fascinating to me now.
And is that just a cultural thing?
I think it is, and I think it's increasing.
Probably from the industrial age of like conformity and
you know what?
self-awareness.
I would love to understand it further. I'm going to do a terrible disservice to teenagers everywhere and reference one of their terminologies, but I don't know if you've heard the term glazing. Do you know that?
No.
Okay, so from my understanding, I've got 2 teenagers at home. From what I understand is right now in teenager society, when you show appreciation. So if I say, I like your jacket, or you did a really good job on that project, they'll say, stop glazing me. So stop, and they'll put it back on you. So you've now done something wrong or too vulnerable or too whatever. And they even have a terminology for it. Stop glazing me. And I'm seeing this more and more, even in terms of when I work with groups or with individuals, the discomfort that comes from saying, what do I bring to the table that is good? What do I do well? Because it's so much easier to quantify or to work towards what we don't do well. And I watch people burn themselves out time and time again because they're not actually doing what energizes them.
So talk to me about that. Like how, like, we've talked about compensation systems, but just like the idea of helping people focus. Like, I mean, is that like a huge part of what you do in this process is like, what lights you up?
Yeah.
Let's figure that out.
Yeah.
And I assume people are bad at knowing it.
They can be, yeah.
Like in general, are they? Or
yeah, you know what? I heard somebody said this recently to me, actually. They said, at the end of learning about their own Clifton strengths, they said, it's like you took what was inside of me and put it in front of me. Not me specifically, but the model, right? So it's putting language to what you're doing and saying, here's what it is that I do, but in a language that's not only accessible, but it makes sense across the board. So it's not just, well, I think I like this and I think I'm good at that. It's these are the areas that I am energized by, that I have opportunities for development in, and that I'm really leaning into.
Do you look at people and like be like, oh, that'd be good to do a Clifton Strengths assessment? Is it called an assessment, or what do you call it?
Yeah, Clifton's. You know what? I think everybody should do it. I really do. And whether you do anything with it or not, I think having that understanding of self is so interesting.
Like if I just had a map on me, I don't know if it's like a map or something, but if I had the results,
yeah,
would you be like, ah, yes, and then you,
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Can you guess at what someone might like? I don't know how this mapping works. I mean, I guess what's like the output of it? Like, what is it, like paragraphs? Is it like a dot on a chart? Is it?
It's Clifton Strengths specifically can be either very basic or very extensive depending on the kind of report. You can take a really basic one that's 5 that just shows your top 5 strengths.
Is that the free one on the website? Or?
But yeah, I don't know. I don't think anything's free these days, but it's less expensive for sure. But the full report that I love to work with is 34, and it's based on, so Gallup is a worldwide research organization, and over the years they've determined that there's 34 basic
Clifton Strengths is a Gallup.
They're founded by Gallup, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry, 34
talents.
Okay.
And these talents are what have the opportunity to be developed into strengths, but everyone has an order of these 34. No one has more or less top 5s. You can only have 5 top 5, right? And when you put it into that frame of understanding, we can't be good at everything, right? You can't have 34 strengths that show up in your top 5.
Are leaders sometimes even like 1? Can it be less than 5, or is it, or could 1 be so dominant, and the rest are, they're still the top 5, but there's one specific talent that just dominates the list?
Yeah, you know what? It's almost like if you were to look at a soundboard, if you've ever worked with music or a band. I know that you're a musician, Matt.
Soundboard right there?
Yeah, soundboard right there. And you look at it and there's a bunch of like kind of knobs or sliders, and you can look at your top 5 or even your top 10 as the opportunity to turn the dials up and down and say, which ones do I really want to lean into? Which ones am I using right now to be effective? And which one actually maybe needs to be turned down a little bit because I find that that's not helping me be effective right now.
So what could be one in an example that wouldn't be effective?
Yeah, great question. So one of my top would be something called restorative, and that's that for me shows up in being a complex problem solver. I need to always find the answer to a problem. So if I'm driving and my car starts making a noise, I am going to get to the root of the issue. I would never ignore it. However, sometimes that can look like looking for problems when there are none. Do you hear that noise? I think it's just a bird. Are you sure? Probably. Do you know what I mean? So then I need to recognize that not everything is a problem. And how do I hone that to make sure that I'm effective in solving complex problems? That's what I love to do with my systems development, right? Getting to the root of what it is that needs to be understood. However, also putting that away when it's not the time to solve problems.
Could you guess people's top? Or are you off? There's like Ian Myers-Briggs, like
Sure,
ENTP. That's my number or letters or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's Enneagram. And
Yeah.
Enneagram's one of those things. I just did a thing on it like 6 weeks ago. And they were like, you don't guess other people's because Enneagrams are self-reflective.
That's right.
So you don't it's almost like you don't want to put a judgment on people.
That's right.
That's my interpretation anyway.
Yeah.
Would Clifton Strengths Assessment be something like that, or could you take a stab and probably get close to someone's, at least one of their top 5 strengths or talents, I guess you call it?
There's a chance that I could, but I think the whole point, and this is behind the Enneagram also, is especially in the work that I do, it's not actually helpful for my clients for me to say this is what I think you are. Because the whole process of this is understanding self and discovering self. Now, Clifton Strengths isn't a self-perception. It's just based on the way that you answer the questions within the assessment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then when you receive your results, they're pretty concrete.
Okay, because Enneagram's like a lot of the questions are like, do you feel like you worry about the future?
Yeah.
And so someone up from the outside would be like, well, they definitely don't care about the future. But if that person feels like they do, and actually the exercise we did was like, you're supposed to answer it with your the height of your ego is like when you're 21 to 25.
Hmm.
And it was like answer what that version of Matt would have said or Josie would have said.
Yeah,
And then
interesting.
and those perceptions, because that's your ego. As you get older, you start to like tame things down. You start to like subconsciously soften some of those things out about you. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I find it kind of interesting.
Yeah, so I could sit here and guess. There's 34 of them, and the way they show up is also very unique to different people and how even they portray that or what that looks like for them. But there's always assumptions you can make for sure.
So what's like what would be the benefit in your process to that? Is this basically like this person's in this role? Like, is
Hmm.
this sort of the practice? I'm very much asking like your process. Share as much
Yeah,
as you want or
yeah,
keep it a
yeah,
secret. Doesn't matter. Whatever you need to.
yeah.
But is it kind of like you're understanding this person, what maybe where they could light up, and and under the assumption if where they could light up is a really big benefit for the organization,
Hmm.
then we will reward that with compensation based on the certain framework that you customize for that organization.
That's a good question. I don't generally work with CliftonStrengths tied together directly with compensation. That's going to come more into the performance side of things. However, what I will say is this: the foundation of what I believe in the work that I do, comes from actually something I read about in a book called High Conflict, and it's written by a journalist. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And the author talks about mediation and how in order to have a successful mediation, you need to have at least one of three things: a better understanding of yourself, better understanding of the other person, or a better understanding of the situation. And I would say that at the core is my purpose, for the work that I do, and what I'm really passionate about is helping people understand more about themselves, more about each other, and more about the situations that they're in. And so Clifton Strengths is a tool that I use in the same way that we use a couple of other tools, several other tools, but whatever it is that best helps people understand both themselves and others. And when you have that understanding of self and others, whether it's management to direct reports, whether it's coworker to coworker, whether it's leader who's establishing a compensation system, when you start to have that understanding, first of all, it humanizes us, right? We take a look at this, not only this system, but the people that we're working with. We say, what are the needs that you have? What are the ways in which that you're showing up that may have looked oppositional to me before, but I see actually now we're just coming at this from a different side? What are strengths that I haven't even recognized that you're using yet? And how do we make sure that we have uh, the motivations and support that um, facilitates growth within that?
I'm gonna get into some questions here.
Yeah.
Um, we're so off track here.
I
It's all
know.
good. All right, I need to prepare. Probably too much. We've talked. I feel like we've spent a good chunk of time on the compensation side, but yeah,
Yeah.
just like you said, you love systems,
Hmm.
and if we weren't talking about the compensation, like is part of what you do like team building, like is that tech like an offering? Like would someone build like
Yeah.
hire you to do
Yeah,
exactly
absolutely.
that spot or?
Yeah. The umbrella that we work in is organizational development. So that's leadership. We just talked about performance and compensation, team effectiveness, team engagement. That's a big part of it too.
Because like that could seem what tied to compensation or not, that just seems like it'd be better for everybody if you
I agree.
got clarity there.
Yeah.
So, like the systems part of it, now moving away from the compensation,
Yeah.
and you like systems, like what are we talking about here? Like what's the goal? What's the approach? What's some of the like magic? What's your magic trick you can do on that side of things? Like as far as helping teams see each other, finding that clarity you were talking about. Like what's like an example maybe of you doing that?
For team building kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we get to do in-person sessions, that's one of my favorite things. And then again, that's where we use some of these tools from time to time. But when you facilitate really good conversations with really good questions or really good stories, I find that those two things oftentimes bring about just fantastic connections. And when we start to put those stories forward or ask really good questions and hear from each other, it's really interesting to watch team members open up to each other in a way that's like, oh, I didn't know that about you. Or this is one of my favorite icebreakers, actually, is I'll put up a list on a screen up front of a list of questions, but you have to pick which one you're going to ask about the person next to you. So this is what I want to know about you. And that gets introduced around the room. It's a safe list of questions, of course. But again, that goes back to that piece of knowing but more about each other.
I find this so, you're opening my mind up. My gears are turning.
Well, and I feel like I'm not giving you, it's hard, Matt, because I can't give you a specific, and that's
you
what I
got to keep
struggle with,
client.
right?
Well, you got to keep client confidentiality.
Well, beyond that too, each organization is so unique, and that's what's really interesting about this is no group or client that I work with is ever the same because of how many unique, whether it's a unique initiative or a scenario or objective that we've got. The similarity becomes in all of the innovation or growth or whatever it is that we want. We need a system that supports that long term, and that's kind of that foundational piece.
So, like, what lights you up about this? Maybe that's even a better question. Like, why did you? Like, it seems like no matter where you go, this would be the game you'd want to play. Like,
Yeah.
whether you're doing it as like in a consulting company like you are now, or if you were hired on a team. Why do you? Like, what even brought you into doing this? Like, it's not like you go to the U of S and go, I'm gonna do what you do. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's a very unique thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Why do I do it?
And you're vested in like uncovering these things about teams, about people, helping them see things they maybe didn't see before. So tell me, why motivations?
Yeah, my deepest motivation, I think, is that sense of understanding and connection. Because when we walk around feeling misunderstood or like we've missed that connection or like someone has perceived something that's different than it is, you see it, right? You feel that in the relationships that you have and the interactions that we have, and the look in someone's eye where they're like, I get it, or that makes sense, when the other person either makes sense or you hear their story for the first time and it's like, oh, that explains something. But that moment of, oh, I get it, or I hear you, or I understand you, that so often is a foundation for building something really cool on top of that. And I feel like what I love to do is create opportunities for those connections of, that helps me understand you, or that helps me understand this.
Like, did you ever experience this on the other side? Like, as like someone was doing this for you? Like, what was your first experience with this? Like, I wouldn't go onto Google like until talking to you. Like, what's CliftonStrengths? Like, I wouldn't even know that's a tool. I wouldn't even, maybe a few layers up, I probably wouldn't even know what to search. I'd probably search like how to have a happy team. That might be as deep as I would have gotten.
That's right. Yeah. How do we even go there? You know what? I don't know that I can think specifically of a time that happened for me, but I can think of scenarios where, if we all think back to a group that we've been a part of, a job that we've had, a scenario that we've been in, where there's one person that just seems to not make sense or really just frustrates you, or is like, I don't know how to reach this person, or that the misconception that comes up, right? We can all think of that one person who just doesn't quite make sense to us. And what I think about is the number of times I've watched people who feel misunderstood or cause frustration to others become understood. And I watch the shift that happens on a team where, that actually was maybe just a misunderstanding, and how can we become more effective in our understanding of that person? Again, trying to be I'm trying to be more confidential and careful with how I speak, but
so you can't share the origin story.
No, I can't.
Let's speak vague though.
Yeah.
Was there, I mean, maybe you can't share, but was there like?
Yeah, there was a vague. You know what? I'll be vague. There was an experience where there was someone who was consistently causing a lot of difficulty for the people around them, and we were having a conversation one day.
No, in this scenario, if you can answer it, are you an outsider or an insider? Is this on your own team you were part of?
It was a part. I was a part of the group that this scenario was happening in.
Group,
yeah. To be as vague as
and if
possible.
we got to cut this out, you just tell me.
Yeah, I will. And I said to this person, have you ever thought about this cue? Have you ever considered adjusting things so slightly in this way of understanding people? And they looked at me with tears in their eyes and said, I've never had that explained to me before. And it entirely shifted the way in which they interacted with people and how people interacted with that person, because there was that moment of understanding that they hadn't had before. It was a piece of self-awareness that wasn't there. that we were able to approach through it was, I would say, surface level conversation. It wasn't a deep friendship. It wasn't a deep connection, but it was a moment of curiosity with a moment of honest response that brought about some self-awareness that really had an impact.
You know what I think I should help you do?
Mm.
We're not doing this today, but we should make fictional stories that you can share. Because
Yeah.
like you wouldn't be like many industries has like law and accounting, like they
Yeah.
handle complex and very sensitive topics
Yeah.
like bankruptcy or divorce or whatever
Yeah.
it is. But you probably read this book. I think it was like the 5 dysfunctions of a team.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that was like a
Yeah.
fictional, I had to read it when I was younger.
Yeah.
And that was a fictional story, but like the fictional story based on real events is still as connecting to me. Like I still remembered like
Mm.
the one story that stuck with me. I read this book like 18 years ago,
Yeah.
19 years ago. I don't even know who the author is, but I remembered the book.
Yeah.
And the one story was like about this guy. He was new on the board,
Yeah.
and he had a mentor, and the guy on the board was like bringing his own problems to the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then this book's about governance model. Um, if any of you are on a board, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you
Yeah.
don't, it's just a type of leading on a board, and it's like you don't bring your personal issues. It's like to how board should run to serve the people.
Yeah.
And so then that was one of the examples was like, oh, the street lights out or whatever it was, and then the mentor was like, that's true, but that's not your job to point that out.
Yeah.
Like that should go through the regular chain.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like that'd be kind
Yeah.
of fun for you.
Yeah. A way in which I can tell my stories. Yeah.
Yeah, because you could make up fictional characters, and you could just say like, nature of my business is very confidential.
Yeah.
But then too, but like part of that too, the benefit would be a lot of people reading it would see themselves in it on any
Mm.
multiple different sides of it.
Yeah.
And then if it sounds like what you do provides some resolution, some understanding,
Yeah.
empathy,
Yeah. All of those things.
all the people, no matter where they view themselves in the story, would
Yeah.
then see it, like they could learn the lesson, you could say. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I love that. And I love how that's a piece of what you do so well in terms of telling stories and helping people tell stories, right? Hey, here's an idea as to how you could tell your stories. Love that.
Because yeah, like what you do is complex,
Yeah.
sensitive. Um, I I don't know your industry enough to like know. Like I've talked to a CEO. I mean, I've photographed them, but
Yeah.
I'm technically I'm a CEO, but
You are.
I'm not like that, like a normal or like an enterprise or something. So
Hmm.
anyway,
Well, you know what, Matt? I think that when you think, there's a post that you made on LinkedIn a little while ago, and you talked about how you weren't afraid of maternity leaves, right?
yes,
How that benefited the growth of your team, and that came from a really significant understanding of the impact of specific steps that you took as an employer, and how your organization benefited from that understanding and from the shift that you made, right? And that moment, that's what I love to do when I work with organizations, is help facilitate that shift in that moment.
what's like the main problems you have people hire you for?
Mm,
Like I assume if everything's all going good, most people don't go knocking around looking for consultants and or advertising or photography, whatever it is.
yeah.
So what's that like sort of thing that people are typically coming to you for?
I would say two sides of things. First of all, there's learning and development, right? There's a lot of really awesome organizations who say that we know that we need to invest in this on an ongoing basis, and they do that with us, which is a really fun opportunity. Hey, we're ready to learn something new with our team, or we know that this year we've got this time set apart. We want to really prioritize learning as a group. So that's a really great side of things, is when we're
And who's
coming on.
typically in the room for that? Is this every employee in the company, or is this like executive teams or leadership
Yeah, it
teams or?
depends on the group. So I've worked with executive leadership teams. I've worked with boards. I've worked with, let's say, one manager and their team. It really depends on the size of the organization. Some groups I've worked with the entire organization, because there's 10 of them, right? Like it depends on who it is that they were bringing in. But what we like to do with that kind of learning and development is have it a smaller number, so that we can really work with the team as a whole, because that's where you have the opportunity to learn best from each other, is when you've got that group where you can interact. Um,
Is this better done in a group, like, or is it better done one on one? Like,
So CliftonStrengths specifically, either or. When I do career development coaching with people, career transitions coaching with people, it is such a fantastic tool. Even let's say if you're refining your resume, using CliftonStrengths says, here's exactly what I do well, and here's how I can communicate it concisely and clearly. And it's always that moment too of, oh yeah, this is what I do really well. That's a beautiful thing. And then when you bring it into a team setting, it's all about team building and understanding these pieces about each other. One of the questions I'll ask a team would be, what name do you prefer to be called? And I always get a funny look when I ask that question. And
I'm already thinking
why?
I wouldn't know what to call my team.
Yeah, what name you mean? Like, so what your name? So do you prefer Matt or Matthew?
Oh, I go by Matt.
Matt.
Or
So if
Matt
someone called
Ramage.
you Matthew, how would you appreciate that, or would you find it kind of off-putting?
I wouldn't find it off-putting. It would just be weird.
Yeah. Do you prefer Matthew?
I go by Matt.
Yeah. So if you worked
Yeah.
in an organization and they called you Matthew all the time, but that's not what you went by. I think of the Parks and Rec, and if everybody watches Parks and Rec, is it Jerry, Larry, Gary, Terry? Like the guy has 10 different names because nobody calls him by the right one. 15% of people get called by a name they don't prefer in the workplace. And that can make you feel like an outsider, or like you're not known, or like you're not a part of the group. So when you work with a group, it's about helping them feel known, right?
Okay.
So anyway, so that's the one group that I work with is, I feel like my explanations keep launching into a larger,
No, this is a podcast.
I'm casting a really
rant.
wide net here.
This is good. This is good.
So coming back to number 2, so the second thing I'll do is working with groups, oftentimes small businesses, when they're saying we're ready to grow, and yet in order to do that, we need a structure. Right. So,
And this is connected to that systems love you have.
That's right. Yeah. Connected to the systems. So
like if I came to you,
yeah,
would a company like mine come to you ever?
absolutely. Yeah.
And so I would be like, so first of all, I got to know you can solve this problem or help me level up. Let's call it.
Yeah.
Lead up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Then I'd be like, hey, I want this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how to get there. How much defining, like how vague can people be? Like, do they just need a desire to change, and then you start providing some clarity and then get into the systems? Or
Yeah. So oftentimes it starts with a very small problem or a very small question. So like what? So, I am adding a member to my team because we've just lost 3, and I can't quite figure out why I've lost 3. And I need to figure out that this next person or how to make sure that I retain this next person that I hired, because clearly something's not going well. What do we need to do differently? So that could be one scenario. Another one could be, I've got a great team of 4. I want to make sure that I can keep this team of 4. But they're coming to me and asking me for some professional development. Like, where do I go from here? And I can't increase their wages. This is what it is. My margins are narrow as they are, but how do I make sure that my employees are getting what they need in order to stay? So then we can say, well, how do we look beyond just compensation towards recognition, towards professional development opportunities? How do we build a system
Gold stars, employee of the month?
Yeah. Yeah. But asking what matters to your team, right? And so then when you have a team of 4, you have a lot more unique individual opportunities to say, what do they each need? Then when you get bigger, and you're saying, how do we scale engagement and retention in a wider way? How do we engage our understanding of people in general to do the same thing? So if we go back to your question about what would you pull me in for, oftentimes it's what's the rock in your shoe, or what's the curiosity that you have, but how do I help my organizational structure? Is that how you actually find it out?
Like you'll ask a question like just like that. What's the rock in your shoe?
No, oftentimes. So if you've got a rock in your shoe, you can deal with it for a while, right? But at some point you're like, okay, hold on a minute, and you adjust your sock, and then you'll keep going, and then you'll be like, okay, hold on a minute, and you'll like kick your heel, and you'll keep going, and then at some point you're like, hold on, I need to take my shoe off. And oftentimes I'll get a phone call at that, hang on, I need to take my shoe off point.
And how would people know they need to call you?
Well, a huge part of it would be that ongoing learning and development that we do with organizations. That's a really great way that we build relationships organically with a lot of employees, a lot of leaders. Glenda, the person that I work with, she's phenomenal and has been in this industry for a lot of years. She has phenomenal connections and is incredibly effective at what she does. And a huge part of what we do is just word of mouth and referral.
Do leaders typically know services like yours exist? Like me coming in from we started the podcast with me saying like I'm an entrepreneur because I have to be.
Yeah.
I don't know those things. Like I didn't go to Edward school. I honestly don't even rub shoulders with probably a lot of your clients. Maybe I do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like
I think there would be two, well, I can't say two, I don't know that for sure. Sometimes I tend to overgeneralize. I think that there are definite streams of business that more frequently would use business consulting and coaching services. And then I think there's a lot of small businesses who aren't as aware of those kinds of things. And that's really, that's where I get excited is, hey, we can do something with that rock in your shoe. Right? Like it's here's the opportunity. And that's a question that I learned from Glenda. I don't know how many years ago was that question to ask, what's the opportunity here? Then it's one of my favorite things to ask.
What is the top 5 rock in the shoes and the top 5 opportunities that most organizations share in common? Or is there a thing that
Oh,
people have in common?
yeah, I honestly think that thing is whether it's misalignment or misunderstanding.
Like somehow like the team is dysfunctional or
Well, no, I wouldn't even say dysfunction, but I think so let's take any person, I'm not even gonna say leader or entrepreneur or um, uh, early entry intern, it doesn't matter who you are, you have your way of doing things, right? And there's often this assumption that we make that whatever we do well, everyone does well. And whatever we think is kind of not necessarily what everyone thinks, but do you ever have that sense of like, well, everyone does that
all the time.
all
Like
the
as I get
time?
older, I'm like aware that I'm not aware that everybody's different than me. I'm just how should I say it? I'm just very aware like I'm biased. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
And that I like oversimplify things.
Yeah. And
I'm
often,
still blind to it though.
sure,
Like
absolutely. All of us have blind spots. That comes into play too with the things that we do well or what we bring to the table is we often think, well, everybody does that. Right, as opposed to understanding what we do uniquely. And so when you get into that position, especially as a leader or owner, entrepreneur, everybody does that. It can be easy to forget that the way you prioritize things or the focus that you have might be entirely different than the focus of your team. So your job is to understand how to move forward with the vision that you have, incorporating an understanding of the fact that someone else might be looking at it from a very different way and leveraging that and pulling that in. And that I think is one of the top difficulties that I see. And then one of the top opportunities is to say, instead of seeing this as opposition, I see this as opportunity.
when you do your Clifton assessment, like so let's say you like that's a tool.
Yeah.
Clifton
CliftonStrengths.
Strengths.
Yeah.
TM
Yeah,
trademark.
it is.
Probably.
Uh-huh.
Like so you do it on everybody in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do it on more people than are even in the room? Or do you have to do it facilitated? Like is it something you always it takes a few hours to do or a day to do or something like that?
Yeah. So if I work with a team and they bring me in, they'll let me know how many people they want me to distribute it to. I'll do that via email. You create your own account. You
They
go
can
on.
do it ahead of time.
They all do it ahead of time. They get their reports ahead of time. There should be no surprises when we sit down as a group. And it's really great. Like there's
And is this like the kind of thing where you have to share your biggest fears and insecurities in?
no, and that's what I love about CliftonStrengths. So Enneagram, you mentioned that before, right? Enneagram is a powerful tool that measures or very much works with your fears and motivations.
Yeah.
Those can be really vulnerable things to
I
bring
don't
up
want
in the
everybody to
workplace.
know. I'm pretty
No,
vulnerable, but like
no,
I'm
fears
not
and
going to wear a
motivations,
shirt that
absolutely not.
says
And that's where the difference is with something like the Enneagram versus CliftonStrengths is CliftonStrengths is not meant to bring out and to broadcast your vulnerabilities. It's meant to name where your energy goes. So that when I talked before about one of my top 5 being that problem solving one, like that, I can share that pretty easily, right? One of them for someone might be something called activator. So activator is the ability to take thought and move it into action. So that's something that I feel comfortable sharing with anybody. So the CliftonStrengths is something that should not be, it should bring about a level of openness without uncomfortable vulnerability, because that needs to be a decision.
and then what do you do with that information? Like so
Yeah.
now we're seeing a picture of like where people are where their talents and strengths are.
Yeah.
How do you then connect the dots to some sort of system?
Yeah. What do you do with it? That's such a good question and important no matter what you're doing. And so, what you do with this understanding is ideally, whether we work in one session just to introduce it or we integrate it into team learning, is you build an understanding so that it becomes an organic part of a system. So, for example, a project that I'm working with integrating this into performance management systems is I'm equipping teams to understand how to use CliftonStrengths for things like building in accountability, for motivating groups, because you can take the CliftonStrengths of a group and understand what that group needs, what the group is motivated by, what the group needs. Sorry, I said needs already, but what they bring. You can take a look at all of those things and say, okay, as our team, how are we going to move forward knowing what we know now? So we know that in order to meet our sales targets at the end of the month, we are actually really needing to celebrate our wins. We are all people who really rely heavily on that kind of group acknowledgement. So how do we make sure that we build that into our monthly system so that we are getting what we need so we can continue to be effective at what we do?
Mm-hmm. And then the outcome of that is just better performance, better results.
Yeah, so the outcome of that is integrating it long term so that it becomes that common shared language that's continually used, right? So then, like if
And
you,
why isn't this second nature for organizations? Or is it? I
mm,
mean, let's paint a picture. There's an old way,
yeah,
whatever that is.
mm-hmm,
I'm assuming that's might be true. And then there's this better way. Well, and obviously the people who are coming to you have a problem.
mm-hmm,
The problem is the old way or the existing way, and
yeah,
then the new way is what you're bringing.
yeah.
So I don't know, why, what's the holes that makes that not second nature for an organization to live in? Does that go back to we're good at knowing where we aren't good, or
Well,
we spend too much time focusing on where we need to fix problems, or viewing ourselves as having problems that need to be fixed, or
yeah, that's a great question. I think a huge part of it is a fundamental shift, and I will even say generationally within the workplace. Whereas a perspective in the workplace 50 years ago may have been more, I tell you what to do and you do it and we get it done. It's very efficient, it's very straightforward. But what we see in terms of demographic changes and generational changes, all of those kinds of things, they actually show us that the desires of employees these days are very different than they were 50 years ago. Gallup, being a research company, talks about this a lot. But what people want at work now is very different than what they used to want. And we look at this even in terms of parenting shifts, right? Or understanding of how education happens, all of those things. Things are changing. And so what's happening now is we're understanding that people want to have meaning at work. It's not I find meaning elsewhere and then I go to work. It's oftentimes a lot more linked than that. And if we want to find meaning and purpose in what we do, that comes with that piece of being understood and understanding others.
whose responsibility is it to, the understanding part? Is it like the employer, the manager, or would you put accountability onto an individual
What a
to
great
not wait for
question.
permission to develop these awarenesses about themselves?
That's a fantastic question. I think curiosity is the responsibility of everybody individually. I think curiosity is where we have our greatest opportunity for learning, especially curiosity versus certainty. So when you come into a situation, you say, I know, you've immediately stopped the conversation. When you open it with, I wonder, or can you tell me more about it? You're excellent at that. You're
I know cantaloupe is gross.
sure. And I know it's amazing, right? Therefore, we now totally disagree and there's nowhere to go, right? What do you do with that?
We became less of friends right in that moment.
Yeah, cantaloupe was very polarizing. No, but what does it sound like if you come curious? And so then what you're saying, what you're asking is such a good question of who is the onus on? And first of all, I firmly believe that curiosity, like I said, is the responsibility of individuals. But when you're building an organizational culture, that is also the responsibility of the team, but it has to be led by your leaders because without the people at the top creating an openness for curiosity or modeling that or even being comfortable with it, it can become very unsafe to be curious if that's not a cultural thing.
Okay, I have a half-baked question here. Do people thrive better when they are aware of these strengths and also curious? Maybe the opposite of that is I guess there's some people who would put all the pressure on the employer to bring meaning to their job and their
Mm-hmm.
life.
Yeah.
And if it's not meaningful, it's not their fault. It's not meaningful. It's the job or the employer or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So, um, I can't really phrase that into a question there, but I guess you're talking about people needing or wanting more from their jobs now than
Mm-hmm.
previous generations. So I guess where's that We already talked about the responsibility. I don't know. We can come back to it.
Well, I hear there being more in your question there. Like I hear you, like, can I
Yeah, assume.
push a little bit
Yeah,
there?
yeah,
Not
yeah.
push, but like explore.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to know the intent behind your question. So what are you curious about behind the responsibility?
Like, okay, so what's obvious to me is as an employer and running a team, having clarity is
Yeah.
beneficial for me.
Yeah.
But you go to like bigger enterprises or establishments that have existed forever, they may not. They may have just like the old way of thinking, and just here's the job, suck it up. We already pay you enough. Be grateful, kind of mentality.
Mhm.
So I guess maybe the question might be like, how do you make these shifts? Like, and what can an employer do to change, or how would you convince them it's worth change, like adopting some of these new ways of thinking?
Mm.
And then how would you encourage an employee or a team member who maybe doesn't feel like they have agency in their life to get more, do more, to kind of make steps into more meaningful work?
Oh, I love that. Okay. So first of all, I want to say that while there are generational shifts, that doesn't mean that previous generations aren't doing these really good things. I want to make sure that I emphasize that. Because I think that while we are seeing larger shifts, it hasn't always been done one way or the other. We're just seeing it more predominantly
Or yeah,
shifting now, right? So there is a fascinating theory that I love by a psychologist called Snyder, and it's called the hope theory. And hope theory takes a look at hope as being a cognitive process. And I'm going to interchange hope and goals a little bit here, but forward where we hope to go, right? That aspiration. And he says that that cognitive process has to be comprised of three things: agency, pathways, and goals in order to have hope. So if you're taking a look at this from an employee-employer perspective, does your team have pathways to get where they want to go? Do they have the agency, or do they have the ability personally to get there? And then you take a look at goals, right? Where are they trying to go? And I think that agency, am I able to? That's very personal, right? Do I have the ability to do that? That's a personal development thing that can also be facilitated within the workplace. But that's an individual thing. Pathways, that can oftentimes be organizational. Is there a way to get there? So if you've got one of your employees saying, hey, I'd love to be head videographer, and you're like, there's not an opening for that. Well, there's no pathway there. So setting a goal to become that doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now. However, what does it look like to create that pathway? Or what does it look like to open that up or explore that if it makes sense within your organization? But if you take a look at the process that way, remember how I talked about high performers need those three things? Do you remember what they were?
Agency, or like the agency pathways, sorry.
It's okay.
Or are we talking about something else?
I'm kicking it back a little further. So
Okay,
high
remind me.
performers need three things: ability, engagement, and aspiration.
Sorry. Yes,
That's
yes,
okay.
yes.
But the aspiration piece of where are you going? And so as an employer, being able to open up pathways to say, where do you want to go? Give people hope, and it gives something to move towards. And so that's an employer, a leader responsibility to make sure there's pathways there for growth in whatever avenue that looks like. And it's a joint responsibility, I think, to approach.
This is a blog post for you, by the way.
Yeah, I've done a couple on them, or I've done a couple of
I
posts
just
on
saw
them.
your recent one about the Northern Lights.
Yeah.
This morning. But okay,
Yeah.
anyway, go on. Sorry,
Yep.
I'm interrupting you.
That's okay. Find me on LinkedIn. No, the other piece of it though, that agency, right? Do we have the ability to get there? And that opens up a question. What do you need? What do you have? What do you bring? Right? Like that, the question of agency. And that brings us back to curiosity too. So as leaders, as owners, as entrepreneurs, do you have the curiosity to say what's needed? Do you open doors for curiosity? Matt, I remember a moment when you and Karen were taking pictures for us, and Karen asked you a question. I don't know what it was, but you didn't answer it. You kicked it back to her and said, what do you think, Karen? And you gave her that agency, right? I can figure this out. And the pathway was there because you weren't stopping her from making a different decision. And she knew what she was doing. She was checking in with you, and you didn't have a different answer. You said, you figure it out. Not in a you figured out. She knew, but what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
You're fully equipping and engaging her to do what she does well without...
And trusting
all of those things.
That's probably the biggest thing
Yeah.
when I ask anytime.
But do you remember that moment? Or
I do it. Well, I don't remember that moment, but I do it
similar?
actually all the time with my team.
So do you hear how you're creating those pathways?
Now I do.
Yeah.
Now I do. I find it interesting, like that whole pathway thing. Yeah, like make them clear, spend time on it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
think about what that is.
Yeah.
Micro pathways. I mean, I don't know how you categorize these all are like, and not that you need to, but like, just like, are there ways to do things? Are there ways and opportunities?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have not, I don't, like, I'm just totally disregarding it. Have we not talked about anything you wanted to? I feel like,
You know what? I'm just here for a good conversation. I feel
okay.
like we've had that.
Let me take a minute.
Yeah.
You can fill in this. You can sing if you want, or I'm just gonna go. I had a um. I was looking forward to our conversation all day.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just gonna pull it up on the intake form because I liked what you said. Not everybody comes and fills out their intake form with the clarity you had.
Oh,
So take credit for that if you want.
oh, thanks.
Under my name, where's the day? I hate my scheduler doesn't always show my intake form super easy.
Yeah.
Where's Matt's pieces? Oh, there they are. Whatever. It's not showing it. That's fine. Anyway, yeah, I really like what you have to share. I think it's not like it's complex and it's not.
Yeah.
Like leadership is complex and it's not. It's complex because it's like the first step is like a freezing point for a lot of people. When I say a lot of people, I mean me specifically. I'm just
Yeah.
deflecting so I don't feel alone.
You're not
Um,
alone.
and just probably taking steps, even if it's a micro step of like, finding hope, finding opportunities for your team. That could probably be the start.
Yeah.
And then probably you'll bump into people like you where, you can provide some guidance. I'd love to help you on some of those stories, by the way.
Yeah.
If you're interested.
Love that too.
Go. Actually, that prompt we did at the public talk, did you
Yeah.
try it out?
Yeah, I have, and it's been awesome.
Yeah. That thing's been insane.
Yeah, it's really neat.
But yeah, like I think getting some fictional stories
Yeah.
for you would be pretty cool. And
Yeah.
like I get the sensitivity of it, of what you do. But I think the work you do, I can just imagine the impact it has in organizations. I think it's really neat too that you have this passion to do it, to find the systems, to find like the pieces. Like maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but you seem like you're taking Lego bricks and building it, like figuring out how they fit together and to kind of form teams. And maybe not even that, just like helping people see how they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
Like that seems to be, from the outside looking in, what gets you excited. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, sometimes it even looks more like dismantling because we come with all these towers. You know, when you build a Lego tower and you've built on top of it for so long that it's becoming really unsteady at the very top,
Yeah.
but you can't quite figure out where it became unsteady. Sometimes when you start to pull it all apart and you take a look at it, you're like, oh, I didn't realize there wasn't this there. Or it's asking questions and dismantling and saying, how do we want to rebuild, or how can we add to this? And that's that really exciting piece.
Let's end it off with this. I was kind of interested in like how this fits in like the different areas of life.
Yeah.
I did a workshop with a guy last year, and they had 7 areas of life. I wouldn't mind. I think I put them in the email, right?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so mental, emotional, vocational, financial, social, family, and physical. So like how does this bleed into a whole person's being? Like if you do this, like if you find your strengths, like those strengths are your strengths in all areas of your life, I would assume.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. So I think with the statement I said before, where understanding your strengths is like taking what's inside of you and putting it in front of you. When we have that piece of awareness, it's so interesting how it shows up in different ways. So when we can say, this is what I do well, that sense of inner confidence, I heard an analogy once where it's like, when you're in the car and your favorite song comes on the radio, how does it feel?
You smile, you turn it up.
Yeah.
Like you turn the volume up.
Yeah.
You want everybody else to hear it, maybe.
Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, I love this song.
Yeah.
Kids, listen to this. This is Alanis Morissette. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Can you play Tate McRae?
Yeah.
No, we're listening to Led Zeppelin.
Be quiet. This is the 90s time.
Yeah.
We're dating ourselves here. Regardless, that feeling that you get when you listen to something familiar, something that you appreciate, something that feels energizing, that can be that feeling that you get when you think about your strengths and when you fully understand and invest in them. And think about how it would feel to be listening to a reel of your favorite songs as you go go through life. Now, that might sound corny, but realistically, to have that sense of energy and purpose in what you do every day, it gives people this clearer sense of it's not so much that I'm not making all of these mistakes, I'm not failing, I'm not measuring up. This is what I'm doing well. And when you bring that sense of confidence and awareness into your home life, into your friendships, relationships, into the committees you join, into the organizations that you're a part of, when we shift that mentality, it's so fascinating to see other people's responses to us and how much more effective we can be when we come at it with a sense of confidence and purpose.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to let you have that closing note. I just wanted to say, it's really great to chat with you. Really cool to hear what you do. I feel like there's a million layers to this I'd love to kind of poke at. If anyone wants to work with Josie, if you have, some curiosity and have a desire to grow your organization, grow your teams, grow yourself, you can find her at leadup.ca or connect with her on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll find her there.
Yeah.
So thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Matt. This has been a great opportunity.